And I am preparing to get going, so those of you watching this on YouTube, you'll hear me mutter and grumble as things slowly get into place. Yes, as we start in on, as the title of the video says, the second orc sculpt. This time, the boss. Yeah, the boss. Okay. Now, let me make sure I've got everything already done and stuff. Got every program open and ready. Oh, wrong one. There we go. Oh, I forgot something, didn't I? Yes, I did. I forgot proper lighting. And I forgot that I've got a kitty invasion right before the actual broadcast. What are you doing? What are you doing? No, you can't have the microphone. I'm going to put you down on the floor there, Fuzzbutt. No. Let go. He loves his daddy. Yeah, see? Now down you go. The only cat that's supposed to be on camera right now is the one that sleeps right here. Okay, so, like I was getting ready to try and say, tonight's broadcast, I'm going to be making probably my most detailed sculpt to date. And that is a full king-size badass orc commander. It could be a war boss. If you play D&D, it could be an orog with a few levels of barbarian and so on. And hey, Brandon, how's it going? So yeah, this is going to be a big and highly detailed sculpt today. Just to give you a clue, let me grab this guy, and this guy, and this guy. 3 figures. This is a normal human figure as I sculpt them. This is the confused rogue from a few episodes ago. This is one of the 2 orcs I made the other day. As you can see, he's a little stockier, but for all intents and purposes, he's the same size. This is the orc sergeant I made last week, or week before last, or somewhere around that time period. As you can see, he's a good bit bigger than the orc boy. The orc boss I'm working on will be as much bigger than this guy as this guy is bigger than this guy. Possibly more. Put these back on the shelf. Ba-boom. Ba-boom. Sneak, 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 sneak. Sneakity, sneak, sneak, sneaketh. Okay. So yeah, we're getting ready to get cracking with the orc big boss. Now, we of course start everything same place we do every other time, Dad's studio. Now, just to let you know, this broadcast will probably take a long time, simply because we are making such a large and detailed figure. Now, I've said this many times, this guy's got a whole bunch of what are called blend shapes, and as you can see, even the bones move as I make these various forms. But what we're going to work with is the orc boss. Now, as I look at him, I'm thinking I made the head a little bit too big. It doesn't quite fit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the head and all of its subparts. Well, actually, first, before we do, I got to turn orc boss down to 0, turn orc to full, and load in them orky tusks and parent them to the jaw. There. Now, go back to parameters. On the base male, lower orc raise Orc Boss, and we got his tusks in place. So I'm going to select the whole head parts. Oh, I got to select all, and then I'm going to scale them down. Just because the head was just a little bit too big. It didn't look as intimidating. Yeah, there we go. And that is going to be our Orc Boss basic form. Okay, now the next thing is I'm going to give him custom props. I'm going to basically go and make him weapons and a helmet custom designed for him and him alone. So one of the things I'm going to do before I do this is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to load in just one of the props. Let's say the right hand club, because his right hand is going to be where we... Oh! Right hand club, just to get his hand to pose. Now, gonna file. We're gonna export this geometry into our broadcast miniatures directory. Accept, and it's saved. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to switch to 3D Studio Max. This is where I'm going to make his weapons and his helmet and a couple other bits and pieces and bits and bobs and stuff. Okay, so the next thing we do is I go up to File. You can't see this because of the way it captures the screen, and I'm going to import the base mesh from this. Okay, and the end result is presto, our basic shape for our Orc Boss character. Now what we're going to do first, we need to give him a weapon. So I was thinking a big old evil looking nasty jagged machete. And I don't mean what's his name, the guy from, you know, Danny Trejo. No. I mean a chopper. A chopper that makes choppers look small. So, we're going to start off with the basic cylinder in position for the handle. And we're going to drag it back a bit because we want it to be in the hand. Now, for modeling reasons, we're going to make the top cap. Let me go ahead and hide unselected just so I can show you why I'm doing what I'm doing. If I leave the top cap segments at 0, or at 1 rather, as you can see in the upper right, it has no polygons here. It's one face with, at this point, 18 sides, although we're going to change that to 10 sides. A 10-sided polygon doesn't do well in programs like ZBrush, so we're going to drop that. We're going to raise that to 2 segments, and all of a sudden we have polygons appear. By the same token, we have too many segments in the handle. We're going to drop that down to 3. Okay. And the reason we're even having 3 is I'm going to select those in the middle over here. You know, down here you can see it a little bit better, and I'm going to make them just a little bit bigger so it basically will fill into the fingers a little bit better. In the real world, a handle shape like this is actually easier to hold. In miniatures, as long as we have the outside fingers looking like they're gripping, it'll fill in that gap into the inside the fingers. Now, I'm going to select the edges that are around the ends, top and bottom of the handle, and I'm going to do a chamfer. What this does When I shrink it to 0.1 or 0.01, that sharpens the edge a bit. So now I hit Mesh Smooth, and it actually keeps its basic shape and proportions. Collapse all. And thus we have our barrel-shaped handle. Now, its position is erratic. It's 26.887. I'm going to make that 26.75 and 19.75, just so that it's in an easy to remember X and Z. Yes, Z, not Y. In most 3D modelers, Y is up and Z is in and out, unlike 3D printers. But it's easily remembered X and Z for the next remaining parts. Also, we're not going to have it set so that it's already even with the arm. Instead, we're going to make it just vertical, up and down, because it'll be easier to work with these basic planes. And then we can just, once we're done, we rotate the whole thing until it's even with the arm of the orc. I'm going to select that again and hide him. Alright, now, next stop is the pommel. There's a couple ways we could do this pommel, and I was thinking we could go with an overly large scent stopper or inverted scent stopper, or even an acorn. Yeah, an acorn-shaped pommel. It would probably... No, we're going to have a skull-shaped pommel. Skull. But it's not going to look like that yet. Instead, it's going to look like a kind of a sphere with a slightly longer, a kind of egg shape at the end. We'll sculpt it into skull shape once we bring it into ZBrush. So, we start with a sphere, and we get it kind of close to the, and we want it kind of big. And we're going to bring it out to about here, and then, let's see, that was 26.75 and 19.75. So 26.75, 19.75. And as you can see here, it centered it nicely on the back end. That's too many polygons to work with, however. Let's go down to 16. Editable poly. And now we're going to take these right here, and stretch them down, and a little bit of that. And we have a nice heavy pommel. And when we load in our orc, it sits behind his hand properly. Although we might want to bring it down a little bit closer to the hand so that it kind of blocks off the hand. Makes it look like a better, tighter fit on the hand. Okay, so we're going to select the Big Boss Orc and hide him again. Now we want to see these a little bit better. We're going to change the default colors that they've loaded in at. Not because they're pink, but because they don't show well. Whereas this bright yellow shows well on the screen itself in polygon mode. And let's go ahead and give the pommel layer mesh smooth. It'll make it a higher density than the handle, but we're going to be sculpting on it anyway when it comes time. Now, the next thing is the blade itself. So what we're going to do, we're going to start off with a box. What's on the box? We're going to make it really thick because orc swords are not known for their finesse. And stretch it out a bit. We're going to go ahead and drag this up a little bit past the handle. And a little bit further down, not a lot. And convert it to polygon. I think we need to bring the... We're going to make up a lot of the vertical thickness here when we add on the edge. Now we need to figure out how long we want this blade to be. Unhide the Big Boss. And I'm thinking Well, it would be a machete for him. For almost anybody else, it'd be darn near a two-handed sword. That looks like a good size for his blade. Now let's hide him again. And now I don't think we'll need to show him until we start moving on the next part after this. And hello, Toadstool! Yes, we're working on stuff for a big old nasty, mean, super bad orc boss. And let's give it a kind of a blue color just to make it distinct from where the handle area is. Now the vision that I had was that the blade would be kind of shaped like this, and then come down with a little hook at the front, and then down near the bottom 2 hooks. So what we need to do is we need to put in edge loops for those hooks. Okay, so the first one, we're going to go ahead and move it up to about here. Then, before we do anything else, we're going to move this back out like that. This right here down to there. Now we're going to connect again, but we're going to connect with 2, and we're going to move these down near the bottom. This will actually go down here. Actually, we need one more. So, connect 1. The reason for this is because what we're going to do is we're going to grab this and pull them out. And then, yeah, let's go ahead and make this a little bit wider. And we're going to select this, select this and loop it, and we're going to chamfer. Yeah, that's good. And we're going to go ahead and select the vertexes here and drag them up. That way it gives more of a hook on the bottom. Now the next thing is we're going to select this way. We're going to connect it once, just because we want the front of this to be somewhat curved, kind of like that. Now, last thing to do for making the blade is selecting all of the blade side, all the polygons here. You can see that it's red everywhere that's selected. And all we want is what is going to become the actual edge of the blade. So we extrude by local normal. What that does is it extrudes out in the direction that the normals would be. While this works for most of the blade, as we can see from the bottom left window, it has a problem down near the scoops. So the first thing we do, we see where this is in Y, which, like I said before, in modeling programs is in and out, not up and down. And it's at negative 6.392. Let's move that to negative 6.392. Because we want it to be down here. Then we select these, and we're going to do something very simple. We're going to negative scale them. What that does, the reason we're doing this, that basically causes them to swap places. And giving it a bit more of a, more parallel. And then we're going to bring this point up to here. Okay. Now, we select our polygons again, because since we haven't done any selecting in the by polygon, it's still the same. And we're going to drop it down to 1% in the X. The reason for this is that gives us our edge. See, there's our bevel to the edge and all choppy, nasty. Now, the last thing to do is to determine what we're going to select to sharpen. And what we're not going to select to sharpen. Now we loop, whoop, and this should give us a nice chamfer .01. Let's make it 2. Now, when we mesh smooth, oh, one last thing. Because we gave it 2 on that, we need to make sure that our edge has 2. And connect it by 1, so that every sharp edge has 3 lines. Now, when we hit mesh smooth, we have this. And it has our curve, it has nice sharp edges, it has that nice bevel, but there's one thing we need to do. We need to tweak down here. And the way we're going to do this is we're going to select those polygons, because we can still manipulate it while it's being smooth. We're going to bring it back like that. And actually we need to do one thing more. Let's go ahead and drop it back down to 0. Collapse these polygons so we have the move. But now we're going to select this and loop it. And we're going to give it a chamfer. 0.01. The reason being is so that this way we have a nice sharp point on that hook. So this is the blade for our big, orky, hacky, nasty thingy for our boss. Now, next thing we've got to do is we've got to get a guard of some kind on here. Okay, also we want to make sure that kind of the center of motion of the blade would be kind of centered on the handle. We don't want it too far ahead of the hand. We don't want the center balance out here. We want it directly above the hand. They may be orcs, but they gotta be able to swing their weapons. So bring it up just a little bit, did it. And we're going to collapse the blade. Actually, next thing we do is the crossguard. That's probably going to do something more along the lines of a saber guard, but without the knuckle protection. So basically, it'll come down the back and then straight out. And I'm probably going to put platens on the side that I'm going to be sculpting on when it comes time. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a box. As simple as that sounds, we're going to make a box. This also means we're probably going to end up moving the blade forward a bit. Alright, so let's move the blade forward. We want it to ever so slightly intersect with the box. What's on the box? I've said that before already tonight, I know. And we're going to make sure it extends up to about there. Add a little poly. Then we're going to select here, and we're going to extrude up a little. Not that much, only about that much. And then we're going to select the front of it, and we're going to extrude it forward a bit. And I just had a bit of an idea. We're going to select those edges. We're going to connect them twice. Bring them in close and bring them down towards this end. The reason being is because what we're going to do, we're going to bend it. So it kind of bends outward a bit. Come on. There we go. Let's bring this forward so it bends more smoothly, and then we're going to select these and we're going to turn them. Oh, wrong way. And then we bring this up here. And we select this, bring it out a bit. We want to balance the bend. Okay. We're going to bring this back in a little bit. And we're going to select that polygon on the bottom down here, and we're going to extrude it out. Not that far, about that far. We're going to make it narrower this way, longer this way, and angled, and bring it forward. Then the last thing we're going to do is we're going to add in one, about here. Yeah, up there. Then we're going to, first of all, we're going to make sure that it's on the same X as the rest of everything. The handle is on negative 26.75. This is on negative 26.691. Almost 75. Then we're going to affect the pivot only, because we want to keep the actual altitude of this guard where it is. And we want to move it up to 19.75. So we select it, change the color on it too, so that's a bit easier to see. Let's make it, and move its Z to 19.75. The reason I did that is because we're about to do what's called taper. And we're going to have symmetry on. And we're only going to do the view from the front, not from the side. So that it overall tends to have a bit of a bend around it. Now we're going to collapse this, and we're going to sharpen the edges. By sharpen, I don't mean sharp like killing sharp. I mean like they will actually look like, you know, cut metal edges and not, you know, blades. Loop. Z. And once again, chamfer. We're only going to go one time at 0.01. It's going to be a little bit rounded. Mesh smooth once, twice, 3 times I made it. And we notice that what we've done is it's now not quite wider than the handle. We need to make it a little bit wider. So let's go to it and we make it a bit wider with the regular scale. And then the last thing is we take our blade. It's a little bit too far back. We want it to be just barely sitting in, because when we bring it into ZBrush for all the fancy stuffs, it will get merged into one shape anyway. And this, right now, is what the sword looks like. And in comparison to the size of Mr. Biggie, I think it might be a bit too big. Yeah, that's a bit too big. So let's go ahead and, whoop, let's do it this way. Yeah, there we go. And then we're going to move it up this way. And because of the position of his hand, we're going to bring it in a little bit that way. Okay, and now we has what's going to be the majority of his big old hatchet, but it's missing one thing. It's going to have a platen on both sides. Basically just something for me to sculpt on and add details to. So, are y'all paying attention? Am I keeping you busy, or do you just have me on in the background while you sit there and clean your room? Yeah. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the same thing with this that I did with a lot of the rest of the sword. I'm going to start with a box, because one of the advantages of this box is I will be able to sculpt it separately from the rest of the blade, because of how ZBrush reads things. Now it's going to be a little narrow. I'm just going to make sure I make it high enough large enough rather, that when it prints well. Because the problem is a lot of the details that I've done on some of my previous miniatures on the show, the details were great if you were on resin printer. Some of the details just didn't show. So let's go ahead and give him a couple of divisions, and we're going to start moving them. For example, this vertex, we're going to bring it forward, and this down, and then this down just a little, and then this one forward. And I think I probably need to go ahead and bring this one up a little. Let's keep it even with the lines it's on. There. 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 And then there. And then the next thing we do is we give it a line this way, so that we can take this vertex and extend it outward a little. Okay. Now, pardon me while I itch my ear. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to select edges so that we can make it look like a metal plate and not just a, geometric weirdism. Loop. And we're going to chamfer these edges 0.01. Okay. And then finally, we're going to mesh smooth. Collapse all. And the next thing we do is we've got to have this be on both sides. Okay, that's a little bit too far out. Let's bring it a little bit in. Okay, now, as we know, we're supposed to be at negative 26.75. So, we select this and effect pivot to negative 26.75. The reason why we moved the pivot out of the model is that now I can go into, get over here so you can see it a little bit better. I make a mirror copy, and it mirrored on the blade, so that now, there we go, there's one of these on each side, and I can, for example, engrave it. Now let me make sure that I've got everything in the right place. That should be at 26.75, 26.75, yeah. Okay, that is all we need for the sword basic geometry, but we're going to go ahead and have a lot more to do. And there, it's all one physical object now. Now, let's unhide Mr. Big Guy. And we're going to have to rotate this big old swordy thing so it's in line with the direction of his strike. Now, is it in his hand properly? Yes, it is. That is our big old swordy thing. So, file, export selected. And as a wavefront object file, again, you cannot see this sadly, but it is, it's the problem of the capture. And no, there we go. Broadcast miniatures Mark II and Orc Boss Sword. Export. Done. And delete it. Yes, I deleted it. And now I'm going back. Excuse me. I'm going back into Dev Studio, and I'm going to import that very same blade that we just finished. Okay. Accept. Now it doesn't show up. You notice this. You can, if you look carefully, you can see that there's a bounding box shown. And if we go to solid bounding box, you can see the bounding box for the blade, but it doesn't show. Why? Because of material weirdnesses. In Daz Studio, it measures opacity. So 100% is absolutely opaque. But in 3D Studio Max, it measures transparency. So 100% is totally invisible. Now what we do is we have our right hand. We're going to take this Orc Boss sword and parent it to the right hand simply by dragging it on top. And now, if I bend his arm, you know, the sword goes with him. Now, that's his sword, and that's a big old nasty hacky thing. So, next thing we got to do is we got to figure out, you know, what else are we going to do to him. I'm thinking some kind of unique big old horned helmet, which means back into 3D Studio Max we go. Now again, everything I do on 3D Studio Max you could theoretically do on any other polygon modeling program. Maya, Blender, any of them. But it's just 3D Studio Max happens to be the one that I am the most used to. Now, the Orc Boss has an unusually shaped head in that it's actually more animal-like than human-like because it's got that nice almost flat slope back to the back of the neck. And an area right over here we're probably going to have to clean up once we get him into ZBrush. So what we're going to do is we're going to make, say it with me now, a box. So box. But this one's going to be slightly different than the previous ones in that it's going to be 3 width and 3 high. And we're going to drag it on top of the head. And that's when we're going to realize, hey, you know what? We should have actually made it not quite so tall. So we're going to shrink the height. Zoom in. Too close. Shrink the height. And this time, because it's in the middle of the head, the X is 0. And what we're going to do from here is we're going to start just adjusting polygons until it looks right. So, editable poly. Now the first things first is we're going to grab the center here. We're going to drag it up so that it's sitting on the head. And we're going to drag the back and drag it up because it's further forward on the head than it is. Now, we're going to select corner vertexes, all 4 corners. And we're going to bring them in a little bit so it's a little bit more rounded. We're still too thick for this helmet, so we're going to grab the top and bring it down. We're going to bring it down a lot. And then we're going to scale it. Why are we scaling it? So that the edge of the plate points somewhat down instead of flat out to the side. Now we're going to do one more thing. We're going to connect these edges right down the center here and split. The reason being, because what we're going to do is we want to make sure we can get it exactly the right on both sides. So what we're going to do is we're going to add an earpiece on the side of this helmet. Actually, let's go ahead and take these and drag them up even more and slightly back. Okay, and we're going to take those and drag them down a little. Now we're going to take that earpiece, we're going to extrude it just a little, not 10 millimeters, just about a millimeter. About a millimeter quarter looks good. And we're going to bring it down to the side of the head a bit, forward a little. We're going to grab the back of it and move it way forward. We're then going to grab and move it down so it's now, the flat of it is now pointing down the side of the head. Let's go ahead and grab this part of the helmet and bring it further forward on the brow. Okay, now we're going to take and we're going to extrude this once more. We're going to go a little bit further down. We're going to bring the front edge forward quite a bit. Oh, didn't sneeze. And we're going to add in one more edge loop just a bit. Let's raise it to where the cheekbone is. Pardon me, my sinuses are acting up and I don't have any sinus medicine. Bringing this over here. Pivot it like that. Bring it a little bit closer to the cheek. Now, the next thing is we're going to grab this set of edges, bring them back. Now, right now it's not looking really that good. So we're going to go ahead and click on the back. Both of these polygons. We're going to, let's raise up the back center a bit. And we're going to extrude these 0. Why are we extruding them 0? Because if we extrude them any distance at all, it could veer away from the center line. But by moving them on an orthographic view, it doesn't. Okay, now the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to grab these vertexes and we're going to bring them over and we're going to actually end up target welding them. What that does is I select this vertex right here, and it jumps to where where the next vertex is. Now, next thing is we need to go ahead and undo the target weld. We need to give it more of a dome, so we need to bring this out a little bit. Now this did one thing that we do not want in the final version. It added an extra polygon. Right there. Right down here. We're just going to hit delete. Now, let's zoom out a little bit. Now we're going to mirror. Because I've done the fancy stuff I need to do, and it's a copy. I'm going to select this, attach it to there, select the seam, convert it to vertexes. That's 20 vertexes. I hit weld one time and ooh, it's 10 vertexes because it's no longer a seam. And now I select the seam again, I hit Control Backspace, and oh look, it's now solid polygons. However, this means that now it's time to go ahead and start sharpening up the edges of the helmet. And that's best done by just simply grabbing and dragging and stuff. Grab there, and then hitting loop. And now, oh, I know I missed something. The front edges aren't gonna select like that. So loop. There we go. Now, just to show you what it looks like fully smooth, let me go ahead and give them all one level of smooth. This is not subdivision. This is what's called shading smoothing. Now, when I hit chamfer of 0.01, we now have a bit better of an edge. I hit mesh smooth twice, and we have the basic helmet. Now, it doesn't look right. It still doesn't look intimidating enough. So let's go ahead and come up here and let's grab these top center vertexes again. Let's drag them up a bit more, and let's grab just the front ones and drag them up even more. There we go. It looks a little bit better, but it's missing something significant.
You gotta have horns. It's gotta have pokey things coming off the front of it. Yeah!
So let's go ahead and collapse it. And now, go ahead. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to make a cone. And give it 10 sides as usual. And then we're going to just simply make a cone. We can add on the base, the fixture. Let's make it 3 instead of 5, because it'll be easier to make it more of a... Anyway. Edible poly. Next thing is we got to select these vertexes, and we're going to make them bigger, and then select this vertex and make them even bigger to make it more of a rounded horn. And then we're going to select these. Actually, I got to select these edges and weld them. I forgot. Almost forgot. Now let's connect a little bit close there. We don't want it super sharp simply because it's not going to print well. Now, we're going to select each row of edges here, and we're going to connect them at 0. The reason for this is we're now going to bend the horn. Bend it forward. That looks good. Edible pop, collapse all. And now we're going to rotate this base and bring it in. Let's zoom in so I can see it better on the in here. We're going to make sure that it's all the way inside the mesh of the head. Now we're going to select that cap. We're going to inset it just a little and then collapse it, so that we now have multiple polygons instead of a single multiple edged polygon. Select that edge, loop, chamfer a 0.01. Okay. Now, next result is we mesh smooth it. Collapse all. And as we see back here, it's not completely into the head, so we bring it in a little bit. There we go. Now, that's actually a little small for an Orky helm. So let's make this horn bigger.
Bigger! Rotate it down a little bit.
And we're going to bring it down the side a little bit. See how this fits. It's a little, needs to be brought forward, and then it should be in the right spot there. And then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to, like we did with a couple other parts, we're going to affect the pivot. We're going to move the pivot to 0. And we're going to mirror it. Now, because of the way things are, I have to now reset transform. Oh, look, it went inside out. And so now we hit normal, and it's right side out again. Collapse all. And I'm going to attach the 2 horns. So it's one piece. Now, the thing is, we want an Orc Warlord, not Orc Loki. So just horns isn't going to do it. We also need a spike.
Big old pointy, sharp, pokey thing on top.
Well, that's also going to be done with not a cone this time. There's always multiple ways of doing something. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to demonstrate that by making a spike out of a sphere. And let's make sure that's in 0x, and it is. Bring it up. And it needs to be bigger, much bigger. So we jack up that radius up a little bit, and then we move it back so that it's at the top center of the helmet. Now the next thing we're going to do, we're going to collapse it to an edible poly. We're going to select these top few polygons here so that there's at least 2 rows that slope back in. We're going to extrude 0, and then enlarge it. And what this does, this gives us that. Now we're going to extrude again, but this time we're going to extrude about yay far. And then we're going to shrink it. And we're going to shrink it with diameter as much. There we go. And then let's shader smooth it just to show that it's kind of messed up. Alright. We need to go ahead loop this and shrink it a little bit. Okay, we need to select all of these and shrink them. The ball is too big. And that's what she said. I had to make that joke. It's a moral imperative. We wanted a spike. Alright, now we're going to select these 2 edges. What's going to happen is these edges need to stay as edges, not as a flowy, swoopy shape. So we're going to chamfer them 0.01 with 2 rows, 2 lines. If you zoom in close, you can see that that means that where 1 became 2 with a normal chamfer, with a chamfer 2, 1 becomes 3 lines right here. Now we're going to mesh smooth it just to make sure we get it in. Collapse all. And let's see how it looks. Zooming around. Yeah, that's... Actually, we need to make the whole thing larger.
Wah! Wah! I got some big spikes. Yeah.
We're going to actually pivot a little bit forward just because the head does kind of slant forward. Okay. And now we're going to, once again, attach this. I hit zoom out. And we have our 3 spiky Orc Boss helmet. And now we're going to File, Export Selected, Orky Helm. And done. Hit delete. Z for zoom. Next thing we do, we're going to go ahead and go back to Daz Studio once again. File, Import. And that's the Orky Helm. Accept. And we have that same problem we had before. The basic materials show up as invisible. Well, there we go. And let's turn off the ambient color to black so it's not glowing in our eyes. And we're going to parent it to the head. So that as the head moves, so does the helmet. Okay. Pardon me while I grab a soda. Now, most things will be able to be sculpted directly on the figure when we're ready, but I don't want him to have sculpted on shoulder pads. I want him to have honking huge tractor trailer fender shoulder pads. You know, the kind that make you go, what the heck is that? So, we're going to go ahead and go back into 3D Studio Max. Sounding familiar yet? Well, here in 3D Studio Max, I'm going to start off with a tube. And it's going to be about that big, but it's going to grow to that big. Honkin' big, and pull out. Pull out, pull out! You're in a steep dive! Yay, that's what they say. Anyway, next thing we're going to do is we're going to reduce the number of height segments to 1, because these are going to be basically just chunks of metal bent around his massive, mighty shoulders. And change the sides to 16. Gonna collapse at edible poly, and then we're going to select all of the polygons on the bottom half and delete them. Then we're just going to go up here to the modifier list, click on it, and we're going to select down to where it says cap holes. And we're going to collapse it, and if you'll look down below, you'll now see that it actually has holes there that are new polygons. Now, that's a bit much. What we're going to do is we're going to lower it just a little bit. Then we're going to select those vertexes and we're going to skew them. What that means is they're going to slant in and out. And trying to find the right direction sometimes is a little difficult. There we go. Collapse all, and we're going to drag them back over. Okay, now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to pivot it. This is going to be resting on the meaty shoulders of our colossal orc boss. And we want to make sure that his ears don't get too much in the way, although we can move the ears manually if we have to. Now, we grab our edges and loop again, because guess what we're going to do? Yep, we're going to sharpen those edges with a chamfer of 0.01 and 0.01 millimeters and 2 chamfers. And then mesh smooth. 1, 2. And we have our shoulder pad number 1. Collapse all. And we go back over here, effect pivot only to 0. And we're going to mirror it. Now the thing about these is they have to be exported individually. The reason being is because we want to parent them to each collar section. So now we're going to select the right one. File, export selected, orc, our shoulder, export, done, and then we select the left one. File, export, export selected, orc L shoulder, export, and done. And then we're going to select both of them and delete. Then we go back into Daz Studio. Now, after we load these in, we should be ready to start getting things in place to start posing our big ol' nasty orc boss. So, File, Import, Orc Left Shoulder, and File, Import, Orc Arse Shoulder. And we're seeing our problem from before. So we're going to select both of them, turn the ambient color to 0 because we don't want glowy shoulder pads, and turn the opacity strength to 100. Yay, there we go. We got shoulder pads. Now we come back into the scene. We take the left shoulder and we parent it to the left collar. We take the right shoulder, we parent to the right collar. And now our orc is ready for posing. Oh, let's make the tusks visible again. Yeah. He's ready. Now, obviously, one of the first things we're going to do is we got to open the mouth. Because orky leaders are always yelling, even if it's not at their own people. Now, I'm thinking, for the pose, how about something like, you know, he's got a massive haka resting on his shoulder. Oh wait, no, that'll be a problem because of his shoulder pad. Okay, well, let's look at what we've got the sergeant doing. The sergeant, as you can see, let me do this so I can, yeah. Open Logitech webcam controller. Yes. Now, as you can see, the orc sergeant, let me zoom that too far, is holding up his weapon over his head like he's yelling, "Charge!" Now, our orky boss doesn't have a shield. What he's got is just a big old monstrous haka and probably heavier armor than the rest of his unit. So he's probably, you know, pointing down, roaring to the sky. This can either be, "I challenge you, you little pigskin, you me big boss," or, "What the hell are you running away for? We're here for a good old scrap." Whatever. So he's going to have his... Alright, first thing we need to do is we need to get the legs into position. And that's always kind of tricky, so let's grab the hips. Which is a lot easier when the hips are that big. And we're going to rotate them just a little bit forward, actually. Just a little bit to one side. We're going to take the leg, we're going to bring it in, this leg. We're going to twist it out just a little. We're going to bend and twist, and then side to side this leg. And then bend the calf. Okay. We bent it and twisted it and then side to sided it too much. So let's bring it back in. Now we go to the front and we're going to select select the feet and zoom in. Now, looking at it, the heels will probably end up being the same spot. We just need to bend the feet up a little. Oh! I need to select that foot. And bend it. Oh, too much in the... There we go. And then bend this foot a little bit. Now, if we go to left view, we can see that this foot here needs to be twisted side to side. And there we go. We also notice that it's still too... Then bring that in and bend it forward again. And we hit Control D and it drops to the ground a bit. Now, next thing to work on is the upper torso. His hips are bending and twisting in one direction. The upper torso needs to bend and twist in the other, really. Not necessarily a whole lot, but in this case it's going to be more than just a little. So we're going to side to side. We're going to bend back. He's going to have a big old open belly and a twist like that. See, the thing is, I've said this before on other shows, the hips and shoulders, the line of the hip and the line of shoulder should never be parallel to each other on any axis or parallel with the ground. They can be like a fraction of a degree off, but if they're absolutely perfectly rock solid parallel, they look like a Marine standing at attention. Even mannequins in the department stores aren't perfectly parallel. Go look next time you're there. You'll see what I mean. Now, we're going to lower the arm here a little bit, but then raise the actual arm itself. I'm going to twist it just a little because we want his elbow to bend like this, and then bend up like that and twist the forearm. Now we're going to bend the hand back a little and twist it to there. Let's select the fingers and the thumb just to get them selected. Alright. Bend. Side to side. Bend. Bend. We're going to bring that bend down some, and that side to side down quite a bit. Now, one of the things that we're going to do when we get it into the sculpt is we're going to go ahead and detail that fist a bit more. Okay, that's that arm. Now we're going to bring this arm back a little, down a little, this arm out a little, and twist it just a little, and then side to side the hand, and that's too much because now our sword is passing through the ground. So let's reduce the amount of side to side a bit. Let's twist it this way. Yeah. Let's bend the arm because it looks too... and twist the forearm. Yeah, that looks good. Now the next thing to do is the neck and head. We're going to bend the neck backwards a little bit because we want to get the chin not completely out of the chest, that's a bit too far, but more than where it was. Because it was embedded in the chest. And then we're going to take the head itself and we're going to twist to one side. We're going to go ahead and close the mouth just a little because that's a little too much interpenetration. We're going to bend the head and we're going to side to side it. And yeah, there we go. Now let's zoom in. And we're going to adjust the eyebrows. Z rotate that way. Y rotate out. Now we take this one and we're going to Z rotate it this way and Y rotate it out. That makes him look nice and properly angry. And you know what? He has missing one thing that the other orcs have, and that's that little thing around the bottom of his waist that pretty much acts like the bottom of a tunic. Let's go ahead and give him a tunic skirt too. Now he's big enough that the bottom edge doesn't look right. Also, we need to select its thigh. Expand all. And select that left thigh. Need to untwist it. There. And that is the basis for our orc nasty big boss. So how is it looking so far? Anyone? Bueller? Well, I am going to take a brief moment to go back to full camera. Because, oh, it would help if I refocused my camera.
You ain't seen nothing yet.
This is just the base. This is just, you know, at this point, I could theoretically just launch it into ZBrush, hit it with a layer of Dynamesh, smooth out a couple places, and I'd be done. I'd have
a big old orc.
But he wouldn't look right. He wouldn't look detailed. He wouldn't have character more than just pose. So I'm going to be exporting the orc and his skirt as one item, the shoulders as another item, and then the helmet and the helmet, the tusks, and the weapon as another.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go ahead and actually let's export the. Yeah, we're going to export this in the manner that I had said. Okay, so first things first, we hide the tusks, the helm, the shoulder here, the shoulder there. Oh, what did it do? Shoulder there, and the swordy thingy. And then we're going to export this. This is just the base body. File, export. And that's going to be orc boss body. Then we're going to hide the boss body. and the tunic skirt. We're going to make the two shoulders visible. Now the reason why these shoulders are going to be separate is because I'm going to be sculpting on them specifically, and I need to be able to get at them without the body being in the way. So it's File, Export, Orc Boss Shoulders, Accept. And then next thing is we go to the sword, turn off the shoulders, turn the tusks and helm on. Those are distinct enough from each other that I can do some sculpting away. And now File, Export. We're going to call that Orc Boss Props. Accept. And then we're going to go ahead and delete it all. Yay! Don't worry, as long as I don't close this program. I did all of that without the... Go figure. Yeah. So, we're going to go ahead and we're going to open ZBrush. Yep, ZBrush. It's getting ready to be time to actually do the sculpting. We're going to import. Let me zoom up. Desktop. Meshes. Broadcast. Orc Boss Body. And this is our Orc Boss Body. Alright, I really do need to fix that little divot. Oh, that's way too much strength. Need to fix that divot there. And the divot over here before we do anything else. Okay, that's the body. Now we're going to append a new polymesh. We then import over top of the polymesh the props. The helmet, the tusks, and the sword. And then we append yet another polymesh. This time we import over top of it the shoulder pads. We're going to go ahead and turn off the props and shoulder pads, and we're going to have just the body. We're going to divide it a couple times until we have a kind of a high resolution. Delete lower, and then we're going to give it a layer of Dynamesh. Now, I don't know if I can't know if anyone who's watching this later on YouTube has even watched any of my previous versions, previous shows, but basically what this is going to do, this is going to take, number one, all of the polygons on the skirt and the belly are different sizes. The polygons are somewhat stretched as well in certain areas of this figure. And there's a visible intersection. It's going to convert it all into one seamless mesh. Now the next thing we do, we're going to shrink the brush. We're going to crank the intensity back up, and we're going to smooth out where the tunic met the belly and the torso. The reason being is because we want to represent this as being, we want his torso to be represented as actually being part of his tunic, or in this case, hauberk. We will add, later on, we will add basically sleeves to the whole thing. Let's zoom out a little bit. And we're going to smooth out where it intersected over the butt. And now it'll just look like that happens to be an area where his butt is pushing into the tunic. Won't look quite as rude. And there we go. Now, the next thing is, let's zoom out, and you can see it's now one piece. I need to break open Mr. Wacom. Yep. Wacom. And we're going to start sculpting. One of the things we're going to do is there's certain deformations that occur because of posing that we're going to get rid of. Case in point is like right here under the arm. And it starts off by basically I got to do it very lightly on some areas, but very firmly on others. And it appears that this has left us with a couple holes in our geometry. So after I do this, I'm going to have to do another bit of Dynamesh, because these holes need to be capped. Okay. Here's another error. Now, while I'm doing this, I'm sure most of you have heard by now, a famous YouTuber, a man of integrity who was well known for his personal opinions on certain matters. I won't get into it here. And smooth this out because, again, it's part of his hauberk, not his chest. Total Biscuit has passed. And yes, it was cancer. I hate to say this, it makes me sound like an evil SOB, but there are so many people I could think of who I would have rather have heard that about. I was never a huge fan of Total Biscuit. I never really watched his videos, but I knew of him and I knew that he stood for his principles and he stood behind them every moment of the day. Okay, we need to make the chest a little bit smoother, again, to make it look like his chest is from a hauberk, not from muscles we don't want to show, skin here. We want it to be his armor. It also includes right down here. Now, like I said, before we do anything else, because of these holes that opened up down here and another one up here, I need to go ahead. I'm going to subdivide it twice. Delete lower. Then we're going to Dynamesh it again. This will cap those holes. Those holes were there because the geometry was actually intersecting itself at those points. By smoothing that out, it ripped apart. So, we're back to 322, and you'll notice, we zoom in, the holes are gone. So, one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use the slash tool.
Slash! Aha! King of the impossible.
And I'm going to take this warped area that came from the bending of the neck on an already warped figure, and I'm going to sharpen it to turn it into the top of... No. Sharpen it, turn it into the top of the tunic he's wearing. zoom across here. Now we're going to subtract a little bit deeper, a little bit smaller, to dig in a line. It's that stupid lazy mouse. I don't like lazy mouse when I don't want it, but I love it when I do. No, we want it to be like this. Yeah. Okay. Let me zoom in here, shrink the mouse. We're going to smooth this just a little bit. Just enough to make it less erratic. Now, I know everyone knows that Monday is Memorial Day. And some of you might know that I am a former active duty U.S. Marine. As such, I would like to say, you've probably heard this from other people, Memorial Day is not for me. Memorial Day is for those who have fallen. It's for whether they died in battle or they died, years later of something completely unrelated. Memorial Day is not for me. Now, next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and add the sleeves. Okay. Now the way we do the sleeves, I've shown it before. Let's make it bigger. We mask off areas of the arm. In this case, let's make it. And in so doing, we're going to extract these and then blend them back in later with the rest of the arm. Okay, that's that arm, and now this arm. And actually not just sleeves, I'm also going to make the edge of the collar, the lower edge of the collar, the part that makes contact with the mail itself. Simply because what's going to happen here is we're going to use this as our guidelines for where the mail is. Now I go to Subtool and I extract smoothing of 0, sub thickness of 0.03. Accept. And then we're going to Dynamesh these new sleeves. And we switch to move topological. Very philosophical as we move topological. And we're going to drag them inside the arm. Now, Have any of y'all ever watched those shows where the idiots call in 911 because, their toilet's flooding and they don't know what to do, or my mother won't let me have Oreos for dinner, or what have you. This, the really foolish times that you really should not be calling 911. Now we're gonna make it a little bit bigger on the bottom, because this is large enough that that the human eye can really see the differences between above and below the whole situation. Now we're going to work on this side. Yes. Yeah. In case you didn't know, this is on the creative side of Twitch, which is not to be confused with the softer side of Sears. And if you're old enough to get that joke, hey, more power to you. And then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and subdivide these sleeves. I decided that instead what I'm going to do for the seams, I'm going to go ahead, there we go, delete lower, subtool, not human, but Orky, geometry, divide, oh, can't, I forgot to turn off the masking. So divide, delete lower, and we go to merge down. It gives me up a warning. I say always okay. And now the sleeves are part of Mr. Orky. We're going to go back to geometry and we're going to dynamesh him again. And now it's time to take, first of all, shrink the brush a bit and smooth out where it meets the sleeve parts. And a little bit over there, yeah. And then down over here we smooth it out. Yes, I know it's easier just to go on Hero Forge, but this way we get something that's completely unique, something that's entirely just what came from our brains. And if I do a character for somebody this way, it is their character. There's one that I did relatively recently that I can't show any images of because there's an issue that I will explain on Sunday. But it is that person's character. It is not a generic, tiefling fighter or half-elven barbarian. Yes, I said half-elven barbarian. Okay, so now the sleeves are done. Let's go ahead. I need to smooth this area out because it's still a little bit too less clothy and more skinny. Okay. Now that is the basis of our tunic or hauberk for our big bad. I also appear to be alone in here again. But that's okay, because I have you, YouTube. And what we're going to do, I'm going to shrink this down again. No, I better not shrink it down. I'm going to keep it large. I'm going to get the layer brush, switch it to negative, and pretty strong, and make sure that Dynamesh is off. No lazy mouse, rather. I'm going to come in here. No, that's still too big. And I'm going to draw the outside edge of this. It's not deep enough. Need to go kind of deep. And I'm going to draw the outside edge. A trim. No. Let's turn lazy mouse on and put up to 100. Oh, that's way too much. Yeah, that's about good. Because what's eventually going to happen is we're going to draw on some mail onto the tunic. And so we need to have a nice sharp delineation between the hauberk and the trim of the hauberk. So by doing this layer, we get a nice little high watermark edge on that hauberk. And then we just smooth over one side of it so that it stays as trim. And there we go for that. And we're going to do the same thing on this side. And then we smooth out these areas that there. And as we do this, we get going. And the next thing we're doing, because I had to get kind of close to that, we're going to use slash, not quite so powerful, and we're going to shrink it a bit, 1, 2, and we're going to draw in the edge. And smooth that. Yeah. And we go back to layer. Zoom out. Okay, now we're going to make the bottom trim, almost literally. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's make it big. And then there we go, around and around and around and around. And we gotta be careful around where the hand blocks things. And we smooth out the top edge just like we did everywhere else. Now what's going to happen, that's actually, yeah, that's probably a better idea to do that. I'm going to go ahead after I've finished making these. I'm going to do another Dynamesh, so it'd be easier to sharpen the edges of where this new trim is, because the trim is now only 1 polygon wide at the edges, which is not good. I also might Dynamesh it a little bit smaller to make it easier to smooth out the butt and where the trim meets the hauberk. Now, for the neck, let me smooth that. I'm just going to slash it in. Yep, too big. And too strong. Not strong enough. Okay. Okay, and then smooth out the bottom edge. Now frame out. All right. Aha! Well, you didn't show up when I hit an @ you hit the @ sign, it shows up. You didn't show up for some reason. Okay. Now let's go ahead. I'm going to go back to geometry, and I'm going to Dynamesh it. And it's a slightly smaller Dynamesh, which means it'd be slightly easier for me to smooth out where the brush is affecting as it meets the belly. And then once I do that, I can go back in and enlarge it a bit so that it's poking a little bit further out from the leg. And smooth this, yay! Bum 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 ba ba da dum bum ba da bum 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 ba da bum bum bum. Okay. And now frame. Now, let me get a sip of soda. Or not. Let me take that out. I love my Muggo can. Open up a new can. And while I'm doing this, I'm looking at the figure, trying to decide what other details to add. Okay. Now, both the sergeant and the regular orcs had a big belly plate. I don't want that on this guy. Because number one, we've already got the whole belly plate thing on the other two orcs. But I need something on the upper torso besides just the shoulder plates. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to mask on, mask off the masker, a chest piece. And what I'm going to do with it, I'm going to have it basically be just a regular breastplate. But because he's so big, a regular breastplate doesn't really fit him. I'm going to go a little bit further, and then I'm going to unmask the edge until it's got some sharp corners. And the same thing applies here. And then unmask that. By the same token, there's going to be on the back a back plate that would have fit a human, but is basically just a little bit more, barely more than a fashion accessory for this big ol' honkin' huge guy. And then cut off the top. Cut off the top, cut off the bottom, and cut off the bottom. And then we're going to frame to center it all. And I'm going to extract it. Not at 0.03, but at 0.05. Okay, except now the next thing I've got to do is I've got to smooth the bottom of the pectorals because that's right, I forgot to Dynamax it. Now, rather than just smooth, I'm going to I'm going to pull the whole thing out by using the standard brush. And then smooth it. Because I want it to have, most of the actual work done without smoothing, because that'll get too close to the edge if I smooth. And smoothing the edge will make it less sharp. See? Now, let me smooth this. Aha! Let's move that completely off, because we don't want that. And then use the slash tool on a positive low to bring this in and sharpen it a bit. Now we go to the back, and we can go with the back because there's a lot more room to play with. And just go ahead and smooth the portions until they just almost reach the edge. Now, the next thing to do, frame it. And we're going to subdivide this a couple times. And then we're going to go back to Boss Man. And we're going to add a couple straps. Because you kind of need these straps to fit something that's that tight onto your orky butt. Or in this case, your orky torso. And zoom this, zoom it around here. And the thing is, these two straps here will probably be hidden by the full-sized orky shoulder plates. I don't care, because they'll still be there, and they might add just a little bit of, it might be just a tiny bit visible, but it'll be there. And I'm going to change this back to 0.03, because I want them to be less than the armor. And yep, that'll do it. Now, the next thing we do is we go to geometry. We're going to dynamesh it and divide it a couple times. Now we need to make sure that this is acknowledgeable as armor. So what we're going to do, we're going to go back to that particular subtool. And we're going to geometry and frame to bring it in. Out. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to make a large, not very strong, but very sharp edge. And oh, that's way too strong. Yeah. The problem with this particular brush, yeah, that's too big too. The larger this one affects, the stronger the effect is. It's kind of like the opposite of the smooth brush. The smooth brush, the larger the surface it's affecting, the weaker it is. Okay. Yep. Oh. And then we bring this down. And then we need to smooth it just a little bit right there and right down here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go to sub. We're going to poke in. And we're going to, first of all, poke in here. Not enough. We're going to raise that to a 6. And what we're going to do is we're going to start in the center here. No, it doesn't look right. It's... Oh, I see why. I see what the problem was. It was in the wrong. Yeah, there we go. Let's go ahead and turn on the lazy mouse with a lazy radius of about 30. I'm going to start here. Not strong enough. Okay, that's that. And then we're going to come up from here up this way. And down. And then around this way. Now we're going to make it bigger, weaker, and add and follow this arc. Yeah, that looks more like a breastplate. Now the back. Let's go ahead and do the back plate. You go to sub, make it 30, and shrink it. And we're going to start from here. Up, over. And straight up. Turn it a little bit. Down, follow this around. Take one down, follow it around. Oh, no, that didn't do. So, there. And then we're going to come up from here for the sole purpose of making this more symmetrical. We're going to go back to add. We're going to make it a bigger mouth, and we're going to shrink it back down a little bit. Come this down like that. Now theoretically this could be painted as metal or as steel, so now let's frame out and let's just see how well it all fits in with the shoulder pads visible. Okay, we're going to do some modification to the shoulder pads, but not a lot. Let's hide those shoulders again. And the next thing we're going to do is, we got that selected, we're going to add in a belt. Now to do this, let's go ahead and just tilt it a bit like that. And we're just going to select mask. Okay. Now, Sorry about that. And that didn't look right. So what we're going to do is we're going to tilt it back a little bit this way. And then select a belt. Nope, that didn't work either. What we need to do is we need to bring it back this way. Let's see how this works. Okay. And we have our belt. I like that, yeah, that'll do. And we're going to make this a point. We're going to extract this as a 0.3, just like we did the other straps. Accept. Deselect. Geometry. Dynamesh. Divide. Divide. And we're actually going to give this one a polish. Simply because... Alright. That's the belt. Now we're going to go back to Subtool. Going to go back to this. But what we're going to do now is his belt buckle. It's not going to be a full plate like the previous ones, but it is going to be kind of big. But it's going to be... Let me hide this. It's going to be a skull. Yeah, the more skulls, the better. Wait a minute, what am I doing? Something I had done long before this that is ideal for what we are currently doing. I had created what's called an insert mesh. What that means is I can insert a skull directly onto his belly, but that one's not the right spot, let's put it right here. And that's too far forward. So right about there, let's go to our move topological and make it huge. And focal shift big. Then we're just going to move it back into his belly. And there we have a skull belly button, a belt buckle. Why did I say belly button? It's not a belly button. It's a belt buckle. Alright, frame. Alright, and let's just see what we've got currently. Let's go ahead and make these props, give them a couple layers of subdivision just to make them not look quite so out of place. Divide, divide, delete lower. And this is our good old Big Ugly so far. Oh! It is now 10 o'clock. I have been broadcasting for 2 hours, and I still have at least an hour to an hour and a half to go. So, the next step that we're going to do, well, first of all, I need to extract this, or split it off, so that the belt buckle is a separate piece. Now, the next thing is, before I do anything else, let me hide all of the costume bits. I'm going to go ahead and make sure that the hands look like hands. You see, one thing I've discovered as I make these things, and that's that whatever you do, however you make, however good your figure is, sloppy hands make it look like a cartoon. And good hands can make a mediocre figure look tons better. Okay. Now, make this bigger. Now, shrink it. Basically, all I do is I add on a bit of knuckle on each finger. A line straight down the back of the palm for each of these knuckles. And then in this case, because it is an orc boss who's more likely to have some really gnarly hands, I make it a little bit more exaggerated. And then I smooth the bottoms of them because they kind of fade in. Then I add on each of the individual knuckles for each of these fingers and smooth across the surface of the finger. The sole purpose of making them almost flat on top. And the end result tends to be fingers. And then I do the same thing down here. And then I smooth it here. Now this is also going to be a situation where, because I've mesh smoothed it so many times, I'm going to have to do one further thing to the hand once I'm done. And that's, I'm going to have to re-exaggerate the lines between the fingers, the border lines. Oh yeah, there's also large bulky bits at the wrist. Okay. Smooth these out. And I also need to make the elbow a bit larger, because orcs are bonier than people. Or at least my orcs are. To get an idea on what inspires my orcs, there's an artist named Paul Bonner. I think it's Paul, but it's Bonner is the last name. And he does some amazing, funny orcs. And they're kind of, they look more fairy tale-ish, but at the same time more monstrous. So I'm going to take a slash and trace up the space between the fingers. And frame. You can already see the difference between, let me smooth that off. You can already see the difference between the clenched fist and the hand that's holding the sword. Oh, once again, more soda. Now, I still have not even started on anything for the forearms or the legs. But I've still got to do these fingers. Inflate. So let's move down. Yeah, here we go. Now, here, 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 and here. 1, 3, 4. Down to 1, 2, 3, 4. I smooth this just a little bit to blend them in. And now I start working on making these hands a bit more oomphy. Okay, and here, 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 here. Now I go back to, oh no, I still got to do the area here and area here. Blend it a little bit. Here and here. Smooth it against itself. And we will have our fist. Except for I need to dig in. No, I need slash. Let's start here. There we go. Again, between the fingers. That sounds kind of gross.
Yeah, I gotta dig in between the fingers, yeah.
And frame out. And the hands look a lot better, and that in and of itself makes the whole thing look a lot better. Oh. Now let me hit refresh on this page. So now I can be as closer to real time as I could be. Alright, now the next thing that we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and we're going to do the boots. The boots are going to be higher than usual. They're going to be right up to the knee. The reason for this is because they're going to have armor on them. To be exact, there's going to be greaves on the front of these shin plates. No. And yeah, that's better. That's good. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to mask off an area that's going to be basically where the tops of the boots are. So that way I can do with them what I did with the sleeves. And when I do, I can then later go back in and start adding details to the boots. So, first thing we're going to do is extract the 0.3, accept, and geometry, Dynamesh, divide. We're now going to move topological because we want to make the tops of the boots a little bit sticky outier. That's the official term. Not big enough. Yeah, and the bottoms go in here. I turn a little bit. And this comes all the way out. And bring them out. Bring these in. Bring this out because it's going way back. Bring this in. And bring that out. Bring this in. Yes, you're seeing a trend. That is not just imagination. Frame out. Now we're going to divide one more time or two more times. Now we're going to take our orc body. It's currently 293,000. We're going to make it 1.14 million. Oh, I forgot. Undo the mask first, then divide. And now we're going to merge down and Dynamesh. This time we're going to go back to the 512 Dynamesh. And now we smooth in the bottom of the boots. Now, there are certain bony landmarks that you can exaggerate to give a slightly, more stylized look. It can either be cartoony stylized or, in this case, brutish stylized. And what that is, one of them is the bones of the ankle. Now the thing is, those two little bones, the one on the inside is slightly higher up than the one on the outside. We're going to use the standard brush for this. And so the one on the inside is going to be up here. I'm going to bring that and here, and then we're going to bring it down here on the outside and down here on the outside. Then we're going to smooth the top end of it. It smooths up into the rest of the foot so there's not a sharp dividing line like there is on these right now. And thus we have the basic boot frame. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead And we're going to mask. We're going to create a mask for where we're going to put plates. To be exact, we're going to make a large area of the front have a mask, and we're going to unmask a straight line down the sides, and then at the ankle, because we want it to be a little bit higher than the ankle. In the real world, it would actually also be mostly curved to make certain that you didn't. No, that's good enough. In the real world, it would also mostly be curved so that you, when you bent your shin up, your foot up, you didn't also, you know, catch the top of your foot on your shin plate. Okay, and then we and that's that. Now, let's cut this side off. Cut this side off. And then cut above the foot off. That's our shin plates. And we're going to extract 0.3, accept, draw, and then Dynamesh, and and divide. Now, the next thing we're going to do, since we have this standard, we're going to increase the height quite a bit, and we're going to draw on rivets. How this particular part of the armor was just basically plates of metal bolted onto his hobnail boots. Okay, I'll frame out. I'm going to hide these plates now. Go back to the base body, unmask it. And I mentioned these were hobnail boots. Well, we're going to make them hobnail boots. What that basically means is the primitive form of steel-toed shoes. We're going to put plates on the toes of these boots. And these plates will in fact have bolts on them, nails, or as they were called, hobnails. They're not unique to hobgoblins. So, y'all keep track of the sinkhole in the White House lawn? I know, I think it's one of the funniest things I've heard in a very long time. He said he was going to drain the swamp, and now he's draining his front lawn. Yeah, let's... And let's bring it back. And then around... and frame out. Okay, those would be good. Well, actually I need to come in here and... there. And now we're going to extract again. Yay! Accept. Unmask. And just for the heck of it, let's unmask so I don't forget. Geometry. Dynamesh. And then divide, divide. Delete lower frame. And now we've got our hobnail boots. And we are going to do the same thing we did before, but this time it's going to be a lot more. There's going to be 4 nails. Not just at the corners, but also along the top. Now, let's see how it currently looks with everything turned on. And the shoulders. It's looking pretty darn good so far. It's also looking like a support's nightmare. So now, we are at the 2.5 hour mark. Yay! And I'm about to start something next. Okay, I'm going to give him a bracelet on his left arm and a full bracer on his right. The reason for this is because his left arm is bent considerably. And a lot of the surface area is lost. By giving him a bracer, a full bracer, it would kind of look weird. But if we go ahead and we shrink off, you know, we make it a different shape, it doesn't look like the shrinking was a mistake, but it makes it look like it was intentional. Gonna come around in a triangular shape, almost like it was a shield. And then bring that down. Bring this down. And slice it a little bit like that to give it a point. A little bit like this. There. And then, let's see, let's bring that about there. And just there we go. And extract, accept, delineate, geometry, dynamize, divide. Now I'm going to do something similar to what I did. On the backs of both forearms, I'm going to make, I'm going to make I know what I gotta do. Brush depth. Okay, and then skull on the back there. And on the front here, a really big skull. Nope, too big. So let's actually make the depth even deeper. And frame. Okay. Those bracers came out nicely. So we're going to go ahead and put them away for right now. Because the next thing we've got to do, I'm pretty much certain that we are done with adding elements to the body. We're going to need to add a little bit of stuff on the sword, but for right now we're done doing elements to the body. So what we're going to do next is I am going to be making chainmail on this hauberk. So what I got to do is I got to load in an alpha, as it's called. What that means is I have to, it's a 3-dimensional or a 2-dimensional black and white image. And you can kind of see it down there. Now, as I make this bigger, I sit here and I drag it down. It's not big enough and it's not strong enough. So let's make it a lot stronger. No. Make it even stronger. Okay, no. Need to make it even stronger. Okay. No. That's too much. Yay! So we got a bit of right at 50. And just so I can keep track of, yeah. So we bring it down to there. Bring it down to there. And the end result is this will look like chainmail once it's printed. Oh. Okay. And then yeah. There we go. The advantage of this method is that you can place the mail exactly where you want it. The disadvantage of this method is it's time consuming and kind of fiddly bits. Fortunately, okay, so it's yeah. And I've just heard that Harvey Weinstein is expected to report in to the police tomorrow. And they're now accusing Morgan Freeman of sexual harassment. And that's all I will say on the matter. Let's... And now, some of this will actually be made lighter. After I've got, basically, as soon as I've got the, where's that chest? There it is. Yep. Now that I've got it, the intent present, then further mail isn't always needed. So I can just make the mail weaker, but the fact that it's there will still be notable. Notable. Now let's lower the strength from 50 to 35. And now frame, and then we load in, make everything visible. That's good enough for that. Now, next thing is we need to play with the shoulder pads. And I need to stop these hiccups. Yay. Frame. Okay. Actually, we also need to make the torso armor visible for this because we need to move part of the shoulder pads here. Move topological and make it bigger. Okay. And let's make this stick out further than the armor because we want the shoulder plates to be resting on the armor. Okay. Zoom out. Now, we're going to put skulls on this, just like the other skulls we did. We're going to make it small, make it, we're going to make it up. And then and here. Whoa. Nope, Now, we make this smaller. Undo that. And what we have to do is we have to smooth those away. Oh, had it upside down. Basically, we need to erase this from the bottom of the shoulder plates. Frame. Okay. The next thing I can think of that we need to do is the teeth inside the mouth. And by that I don't mean the tusks. I mean the other teeth. So this is pure sculpting, no extraction or anything, so we got to divide it 2 times. Delete lower. Zoom out. And the way we're going to do it is we're going to use a standard tool. We're going to make it smaller. Where did I? There it is. And then we're going to make a big old gum there. And one behind the tusks here. Now we're going to grab the move tool again, and we're going to shrink it. We're not going to shrink it, we're going to shrink the focus. So there. 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 Rotate a little bit. There. 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 And there. Now we're going to inflate them. Oh, let's turn it back to standard dots and turn off the alpha. There we go. Now, I'm going to go back to inflate, and we're going to hide the tusks, simply because we need to be able to see what we're doing here. And we're going to draw around the teeth and smooth the base of that. And that's how our teeth fit into the mouth. And we do the same thing above the top teeth. Alright. Sorry about that. Once again. And let's rotate it back. and we're going to smooth out where the gum meets the lip. Okay. Now let's make those things visible again. In fact, let's go ahead and let's make the tusks even larger, because they need to be. This is a boss. Let's grab it and drag it up. And grab it and drag it up. There we go. And let's inflate the bottoms. Whoa, way too much. Now let's go back to Orky Boy and let's start sculpting details on the face. And we're going to hide everything except for the head, because what we're going to be working on is the upper lip and the brow and wrinkly bits like that. And most of this is going to be done with the slash brush. Now let's shrink down that brush. And we're going to outline where the eye should be. Two, three. And then okay. Zoom out a little bit, bring it down, and now we got a little bit of let's smooth that because we want to exaggerate it. Now we're gonna make this bigger and a little bit weaker, and then we're going to trace from the nose down side of the mouth. Make the laugh lines, although in this case they're more scowl lines, deeper. And then we're also going to draw in some additional of these rough lines that orcs seem to get in various artwork. And draw in a couple deeper lines here and here. Then we're going to make it smaller and a little bit narrower, a little bit shallower, and draw in further lines here. Yeah. And then we're going to smooth the tops of these little wrinkles as they blend in to the rest of the upper lip, facial, nasolabial fold area. And then we're going to, just in off chance someone prints this in DLP, we're going to make some nostrils. DLP, SLA, whatever. Okay. Now we're going to detail the ears. Yes, the ears. I'll bring that up to back up. That's the first thing we're drawing on, is that little Let's hide the hand. Alright. Yeah. And then we shrink it and we smooth out underneath that little bit we just drew. Let's layer it. Just to make it a little bit easier to, and then smooth out all of this. Okay, and then we rotate around again, and let's mush this back in some. And smooth it out. And then once we've done this, we're going to zoom out again. Go back to slash, make it a little bit deeper, and make it go in. There. Now again, a lot of this detail won't show up very well on an FDM printer. Even on mine and even on some of the best ones that you've seen. This will take mostly a resin printer. Now let's frame back out again. And let's make everything visible. Boop, 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 boop. And this is our boss so far, which is looking great. The only thing left, from my opinion, is the sword. We've got that pommel that's going to be a skull, and we put those darn side plates on the sword for a reason. But yeah, he's looking pretty nasty, isn't he? Yeah. Now, give me just a second. The thing is, what Morgan Freeman did, yes, it was wrong. He did do some kind of harassment. It was not as bad as Weinstein. He didn't practically rape women. He just was a douche. Okay. Now, on the sword, the first thing that we're going to do is unlike the shoulder pads and all of that, we can't just use the insert mesh onto this. Instead, we have to actually turn this into a skull. Let's start off underneath the hand. What's going to happen is it's going to be set up down here. Let's increase that. That's that part. Okay, we're going to put the face on the underside of the hand. And next step is we're going to polish this. And we're going to increase the intensity 100%. Yeah, there we go. Now, we're going to go back to inflate, make it smaller. And not quite as intensive. And we're basically going to draw on the eye sockets. And then we're going to make it bigger, more intense, a little bit bigger. And we're going to draw across the top. And bring this up a bit, and we're going to turn that into the mouth area. Sorry if I got quiet in you for a second, I was concentrating. And then a little bit there, a little bit there, a little bit there. Then we're going to make it smaller, and we're going to sharpen. Actually, no, let's do it standard. V sub. And basically dig in that eye socket. We're gonna grab it with the move topological. We're using all of our tools today, aren't we? Making it bigger. We're gonna grab that and bring it out and up. And then we're gonna make it much bigger and grab the bottom. And then finally we're going to use the slash to draw that. Now, on the slab sides, what we're going to do first, I'm going to use the regular gemstone. Well, no, right here. Too big. So we need to brush. Yeah, there we go. No, too deep. Alright, now let's try it. Still too deep. Okay. And yeah, that's good. Whoop, no, I don't want a gem on his fang. By adding those gemstones, it's making look like it may not have been carved by the orc, but instead been claimed by him from some other source. And now we're going to go back to layer. And we're bring our draw size down. No, let's make it a little bit bigger. And do I have the lazy mouse on? Yes, let's turn lazy mouse off. And what we're going to do is we're going to write Orky style. Well, actually, let's go to geometry and divide it. Now we're going to write. Just random engravings on the side. Okay, now frame out. And that is mostly what we have. Now the thing is, we have one more thing to do. Besides take my headphones off and shake my head because, wow, that got... Oh. We need to add the base. We need to let the base, don't drop the base, add it. And let's merge everything down first. Alrighty. Now, append polymesh. I'm going to select that polymesh and import. Well, I have a large base. It is larger than the standard base, as you can see. The reason for this is because this is so much larger than the standard orc. There is a precedence. Now, yes, we have to move it, which is under deformation. Don't ask me why. We're going to offset Y. Bring it down slowly until it very clearly went underneath. Okay, -1, -1. Okay, so the feet are nice and solid on it. That's at least one thing we don't have to worry about. Now we need to offset it by Z. Whoop. Let's bring it back. And still not enough. That might be enough. Now we need to offset it by X just a little bit. Okay. Now, yeah, it's too far forward. Let's take it back by 5. -5. Now, there is a precedent for orc bosses being on a huge base. One of the more popular earlier space orc figures had their big boss on a huge honking base. Now, before we merge these, I'm going to subdivide the base a couple times. Bleed lower. Now, merge down. We have our orc sculpted. There's one problem with this nicely sculpted orc. And he's 6.951 million polygons.
Million.
So we got to deal with that. And the way we're going to do this is, there's a nice little plugin that's already default part, and we want to take them down. Let's take them down to 150. Let's take them down to, let's say 120,000 polygons. And I'm going to lag now because the computer's going to be busy. And it's going to take a while to deal with nearly 7 million polygons. I don't think I'm actually going to lose any frames, but at least this way I can, just shoot the breeze while waiting on it to finish doing what it's doing. Mm-hmm. Stevie Kitty. Mm-hmm. I'm seeing 25% done. Wow. Now. Bum 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 boom. Nope. Didn't do it in 30 seconds. In fact, it might do it for the remaining... Oh wow, I've been on here for 3 hours and 10 minutes. This is now officially the longest cast I've done. Wow. So yeah, this sucker's gonna be a pain to bend because of that helmet. There's 2 horns coming out forward. The rest of it shouldn't be too hard. The sword might take a good bit of support, but... Oh, don't tell me. Yeah, it's gonna take a while. So, if anyone is in here watching me that's not on... Okay, let's see what ZBrush is doing. Still computing. Yay. Guess what? You might be able to watch me have a complete and utter loss of everything I've done tonight. No! Aha! 60,000 polygons worth of orc. How does that look for you? Now, I'm an idiot. Undo that. I forgot that before I do this, I have to Dynamesh it to blend all of these individual pieces into one. Dynamesh. All that time for no results, and a cat jumping up on me. What are you doing, little fuzzbutt? What are you doing? Yeah. My cats love me. As if you couldn't tell. Is that what it is? Is that why you're up here? Apparently so. Well, after doing that Dynamesh, blending it into a single cohesive shape, it's now 3.4 million polygons. That's still way too many. You know, what am I getting? Oh, okay, that's what I'm getting. So what we do is we go to Z plugin and hit that custom 60k poly or 60k triangles, 120k poly 60k points, vertexes. That's it. Yay! It'll be a lot easier because it's only 3.411 million points at this, well, point in time. Now. Oh. This will definitely be up on the Thingiverse as soon as I can get it up. More soda. Yes, I've had enough soda tonight that I'm almost certainly going to be, well, anyway, after this all gets done. And it's in the computing please wait stage yet again. That means reading Go Z file and any second now. Yes. 120,194 triangles. Frame, zoom out, and this is our big orc war boss. Export. Yes, save what I've just been working on. Big orc boss. And there we have it. It's massive. It's mean. It's orky. Orky is all get out. Okay. And since these lights are dying, the batteries in them at least are. Let's go ahead and off. Now, what are you looking at, baby girl? Yeah. You got a sweetie kitty down here. Yep. Yeah, she wants kitty kisses. Oh. Snuffles. Yeah. Anyway. The orc big boss is done. Thank God. And now Nightbot decides to speak up. Go figure. Okay, well, I'd like to thank you for watching this project. And if you're watching this later on either Twitch or YouTube, feel free, don't forget, YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe and all the usual bell and whistle stuff. And Twitch, please join Toadstool and the others as soon as they can, you know, because the more people in here, the better, because it's starting to get really disheartening, and I'm really wondering if there's any reason for me to be doing these sculpts online at all. So, I will talk to you all later, and I hope you have a wonderful evening. I'm going to be logging out when I see my hand on the screen reach 1. Okay? That's 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.